train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is older, he shall not depart from it. I've been reading the Passion Translation lately. It reads a little bit different because it was always confusing to me because, here I was, a youth pastor for several years, and it was like, God, I don't always see that working out because I see all these church kids, and the Passion Translation brings it out pretty well. It's not as if they won't go astray, but that truth that you sow is still there, and it's not his word will not return void. So, any other announcements? We do communion. You guys know we do communion each Sunday morning at 10:30. If I had a new helper today, Smitty's kids helped me put communion together. I asked him. I said, maybe one day you can do this for me. That kid would drink the whole bottle of juice, though. It wouldn't be nothing left for the rest of us. Yeah. I get their names mixed up. Aspen, Arwen, all their names. Anyway, everybody good? Merry Christmas. Happy Easter. Norris, you good? I want to talk to you today. How this kind of started. I was reading something on the Elijah list this week, and I had a direction I thought I was going to go, and I wasn't quite settled on it yet. And in fact, it was part of what I'm going to do first out of Psalms 84 is what I had. And I read this post on the Elijah list. I get emails from them, prophetic things. Have you guys heard of a pastor down in Tennessee, Chattanooga? His name's Andrew Towe, T-O-W-E. Phenomenal. He's a prophetic type pastor, teacher, really good teacher. When I see his things come across, I usually stop and see what he has to say today. And he actually went into something I'm going to go into in a little while in Mark chapter 10, where it talks about your now season. You're spotting your now season. And that's what I want to talk to you today is how do you spot? Because, a lot of us are in this waiting game. So I want to talk to you today about how to discern your now season. If you have your tablet or whatever way you're looking at the word, maybe you're going to look on the screen. Smitty will have this. I was just sitting before the Lord this week before I went to work, and Sharon and I actually talked about this morning. I won't embarrass her. I was going to have her let her tell you what she actually told me right after communion some of what I heard this one morning last week. See, it's real important that before you go through a hard time, it's real important when things are really, as smooth as can be. We all have issues. We all have things we could complain about. But when you're in a less than volatile season and you're trying to spend time with the Lord, it's very, very important to practice hearing God's voice for yourself. It's vital because, see, if you wait till all the clamor and all the noise is going on, all the fear and all the things that's going on, it's harder. It's not impossible, but it's better if you can hear God before that, because then your confidence level is, and you're not so hesitant to move on it. So I've told you this before. A lot of times I'll just sit before the Lord. Not that I'm trying to get a message for a sermon, not for, Lord, you know what you want to talk to me about. And see, I spend a lot of time, Dee and I've talked about this, I just listen. A lot of times I just listen. We think praying is us talking. No, praying is communication. And it's best if he's doing all the talking. And you're training, you're opening your heart, you're submitting your heart. King of kings, Lord of lords, creator of all the universe, what would you say to me? And I heard him say, it was a whisper. That's how you could tell. It was just a very faint. You have to pay attention. And if you're waiting for an audible voice, I'm telling you, I've not, you're not going to get an audible voice every time. If you do, you're in trouble. You need some deliverance. but he just whispered real lightly. He said, Psalm 84, I want to tell you this. I'm only going to take you verses 5 through 8, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4 verses. But really you should read the first 4, but for the sake of time, I want to go. But the one thing I do want to show you, and if you read this in the Passion Translation, after the first 4 verses, there's a word there. If it's King James, you'll see the word Selah. Everybody know what Selah means? Yeah, think about it. That's what was always told me Selah meant. It's a Hebrew word. Think about it. So after those first 4 verses, think about it. Well, we're going to start in verse 5, but guess what? After verse 8, which is where we're going to stop, there's another Selah. I like how the Passion Translation, they take it to the next level, though. Rather than just think about it, in the Passion Translation, instead of saying Selah, it says this. This is profound. Shirley, get ready for this. This is your happy birthday. This is what it says. Instead of Selah, it takes it to the next level. It says, pause in his presence. See, you're acknowledging that communication when you do that. It's not just saying, hey, think about what is written on a page, but dialogue with God. Pause in his presence, get his input. What does this mean to me? Okay? So verse 5, Psalms 84. He says, how enriched are they who find their strength in the Lord. You know, sometimes when you're going through things, you can fill your life up just to get through the day. You can do all kinds of things rather than lean on the Lord. But he says, how enriched are they who find their strength in the Lord. We know that the joy of the Lord is our strength. But see, this is that same concept of pausing in his presence. If it's the joy of the Lord, where do you have to go to get it? The Lord. If it's the joy of the Lord, that's your strength. You know, I just taught on this a couple weeks ago about the joy of the Lord. Joy is not happy. Joy doesn't make sense sometimes. How can you walk around happy when this and this and this and this is going on in your life? How can you? It's the joy of the Lord that's my strength. He says, how enriched. I'm enriched. Anybody enriched? How enriched are they who find their strength in the Lord? Within their hearts are the highways of holiness. Now, it's a posture. What he's describing here is you're sitting, you're paused in his presence, allowing his input. Not necessarily you saying anything, you're just allowing him to affect your heart in whatever situation you're in. How enriched are you when you have that heart posture, because that's the highway to his presence. That's the highway to holiness. Even when their paths wind through the dark valley of tears. This next line is what got me. Even when their paths wind through the dark valley of tears. Anybody had any tears lately? They dig deep. Why? Because they have that pause in his presence. They have that dialogue. They dig deep to find a pleasant pool where others only find pain. Hallelujah. That was revelation. That was like, oh, I'm so glad I actually let him talk to me this morning. I'm so glad that I was paused in his presence. He said, son, you can go through it kicking and screaming, or you can go through it joyous. You can go through it with me and acknowledging me and acknowledging I'm never going to leave you. I will never forsake you. And you can either be one that receives that pool of joy where others find pain. Choose. So that's the way he talks to me. He gets real plain with me. You can do it either way. They dig deep to find a pleasant pool where others find pain. A pool is self-standing. You know, it's just a pool. Now watch this. He gives to them a brook of blessing. So it's not just a pool, but there's something feeding this pool. We know it's out of that presence. It's that highway of his presence, his highway of holiness. He gives to them, those that have that posture, he gives to them a brook of blessing filled from the rain of an outpouring, and they grow stronger and stronger with every step forward. And the God of all gods will appear before them in Zion. Last verse, I like this. He says, hear my cry, O God of heaven's armies. So now he's alluding to the angelic host. He says, hear my cry, O God. Does he hear your cry? Run this through the cross. Of course he does. Have I been good enough for him to actually speak to me? See, that's old covenant thinking. Run it through the cross. You wouldn't have to say, hear my cry, O God. You know he hears you, right? See, it's important that you know how to run things by the cross. He says, hear my cry, O God of heaven's armies, God of Jacob. I don't have everything. I told you about Jacob. When you read where he's referring to the nation of Israel as Jacob, it was before he was renamed. It was warts and all Jacob, supplanter. See, that smells of grace. Hear my cry, O God of heaven's armies. O God of Jacob, you love me in my undone state. I'm not where I'm going to be, but I'm not where I used to be. He says, listen to my loving prayer. Amen. Amen. Worth getting up for today, Steve? Yeah. It's a good time to say yeah. Kind of put him on the spot there, you know. What's he going to say? Let's go to Mark chapter 10. Mark chapter 10 is one of those chapters that has so much stuff in it. I even wrote them down because I didn't trust myself to. It starts out where they're asking Jesus about divorce. That's in the first few verses. Then he brings the children and blesses them. See, maybe you were. Yeah. He blesses the children. I'm telling you, the way things go around here, it's amazing how when we just open our hearts up and flow with the Spirit, you can see it. Jim didn't know where I was going today. He picked that completely up on his own. That was in here. He blesses the children. Then that's when that rich young ruler shows up and starts asking him, what do I have to do to have eternal life? Then Jesus prophesies that he's going to die. And then, this is all in one chapter now. And then just before our text is where James and John went to Jesus and said, can we sit on your right side and your left side when we get in the kingdom? Mark chapter 10. I want to talk to you today about discerning your now season. We're going to talk about blind Bartimaeus. You all remember blind Bartimaeus in Sunday school? Blind Bartimaeus. Jesus! You remember that? I taught on this several years ago, at least 10. And I'm going to read to you out of the Passion Translation, big shocker, but it fully explains, it's just right there given to you, some nuggets that I dug out 10 years ago that were, people were like, oh, wow, I never heard that before, but we didn't have the Passion Translation yet, and they bring things out. I'm glad they weren't around 20 years ago when I was making my living really week to week on the offerings of churches that would have Joy and I come. She would sing, and she'd get them all primed up, and then I would come and I'd share the word with them, and I'd share a chapter, so many verses. And it was mostly Baptist churches, sometimes Methodist, usually, one of the two. And I always taught out of the old King James because you never know when that's an issue. And I was trained up to teach out of the King James. and I had good Bibles, and I would go back into the original language and break down the word, and you know how I do. The Passion Translation kind of does it for us here. I'm going to start in chapter 10, verse 46, and I want to show you some things here to help us to be able to recognize when it's our now season. Let me set this up. You guys all know Joy and I have been going through a season of seasons. And it's not like we were the only ones, but different people throughout, different prophetic voices throughout the world prophesied years ago, just like I was, that we were in for a shaking of all shakings, that it was coming, that we knew it was coming. And the reason I feel led to share this with you today is some of us have been in it for a while, but now it's starting to filter into everybody's going through something. And there's a lot of the enemy's trying to divide and conquer. He's scared to pieces. He sees what's coming. He's trying his best. He would love for the rapture to happen. Honestly, he'd love to just get us out of here before this big revival. But as I was listening to or reading Andrew Toe's word on this chapter, I was reminded of what I taught on this about 10 years ago. And about 2 weeks ago, before we were coming to where I had to make some decisions, I was running out of time that I could take off, because once you run out of time, then you start getting points, and then you don't have that job anymore, which means you don't have insurance anymore, which means eventually you don't have a home anymore, which means, you see how your mind goes. And I have to think, in the natural but supernaturally. And I try not to rely on common sense but divine sense. Because, see, divine sense knows the future. Divine sense knows what you're seeing, and people can give you common sense. Well, don't you have any No, I'm trying my best to hear God. I'm trying to have divine sense. Sometimes divine sense, not sometimes, all the time, divine sense trumps common sense. How many mothers and fathers would wish your kids had some common sense too? It happens. They grow up. And hopefully, life lessons they learn. But I was trying to have divine sense and trying to, if I can get her out, they can get her to where she can walk in the nursing home. I need to save what time I have left for when she comes home, because she's going to still need me. And I was down to about 13 days worth. And if after that 13 days, what am I going to do? Oh, I hope you make it today, honey. Good luck with that bedpan. You have all these things going on in your head, and you're trying to stay focused and not worry and not get into fear and not allow the enemy to bring confusion. And you just have all these voices that are interjecting things. And I came to myself when we were going to go to Cleveland Clinic. I was having to spend some of those hours before I wanted to. And when we finally got the approval from insurance, insurance runs these situations. When we got the approval to go to Cleveland Clinic, I probably said this to some of you. This is my metaphor. This is my example. I said, I feel like I'm in a poker game and I'm putting all my chips in the middle. And I'm saying, God, this is on you. And honest to goodness, it was a relief. Something's got to happen, or it was a relief. I didn't have to try to figure out. I didn't have to try. It was like, I'm in, God. You're faithful. I trust you. My steps are ordered, Joy keeps reminding me. That's what we find here with this guy named blind Bartimaeus. Verse 46, it says, when Jesus and his disciples had passed through Jericho. You guys remember Jericho, the place where the walls came down when they marched around, when they first got into the promised land. He's going through Jericho. It says, when Jesus and his disciples had passed through Jericho, a large crowd joined them. Upon leaving the village, they met a blind beggar sitting on the side of the road named Timai, the son of Timai. Timai Jr. See, when they call him blind Bartimaeus, Bar means son of. Like you've read in the Gospels where Jesus was encountering a man named Simon Bar-Jonah. Remember that? Bar-Jonah is not his last name. Bar-Jonah, it means, Bar means son of. He's Simon, son of Jonah. Okay? So this is Timai. It's an Aramaic word, name. It means excellent. But this guy's blind. Blind excellence. Put your prophetic glasses on. This is speaking of the church and maybe just me. I need eyes to see. He promised I would have eyes to see because I'm a lover of God. But how many of you know that's a daily process? And as you sit in that highway of holiness, that posture, He will show you things for that day, for that week, for that month. He'll show you things that you need to know. In some ways, because we don't know the future, but we know the one who does, in and of ourselves, we're blind excellence. We are excellent because He made us. We are His, He is ours. But without Him, we're blind. We don't know what's coming. They met a blind beggar sitting on the side of the road named Timai, the son of Timai. His name means excellence. But see, he was blind. His blindness defiled his name. He wasn't, and you'll see in the context, he wasn't born this way. At some point in his life, he became blind. When he asked Jesus here in just a few verses, he says, "Give me my sight back." You don't miss as much what you never had. But when you had something of value, you miss it. I like what Joy always tells folks. Joy has these certain things. When you minister with someone, you hear her say the same phrases, and she'll say the same things. And she says about the Lord, she says, the presence of God is something that nothing else can satisfy. Nothing else can satisfy. So this blind Bartimaeus, this Timai, the son of Timai, this blind excellence, when he heard that Jesus from Nazareth was passing by, now where was he? He was right there as Jesus is coming out of Jericho. That's where he finds Timai. Now let's think about this. We have people, beggars around town, that you'll see the same guy in front of the McDonald's at the traffic circle. And you'll see the same guy at over by Dick Warner's. You'll see it as you're coming down the hill, there's the same guy. Wonder what would happen if another person came up and took his spot. There'd be a fuss. Right? Because they strategically place themselves where they can get the most money. Just like, how do I say this? A lady of the evening. You've seen the movies. You've seen the shows. This is my corner. Then they're going to have to deal with her guy that runs the show. Right? This blind beggar, this blind Bartimaeus is right there. He gets them coming and going. He's right there at the edge of the city. He's got a good spot. He's been there a while. He's got somebody helping him out. They regulated these things in those days. So when he heard that Jesus from Nazareth was passing by, he began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David! Jesus, Son of David!" He's looking. He recognizes, and he's heard about this Jesus. He may or may not have known he was in town, but maybe there was another way into town. Maybe he missed him the first time. Maybe he wasn't at his post, and maybe he heard, but he was here, and Jesus was there. But now here comes Jesus. He hears the crowd coming. He knows this is his now time. He had the ability, he had the foresight to recognize once he is gone, he's gone. This is my only chance. He says, "Jesus, Son of David." He's acknowledging that this is Jesus, the Messiah. He knows what Jesus speaks about Isaiah 61. He knows that the Messiah's role in Isaiah is described. He's going to restore the sight to the blind. This is my chance. This is my now moment. He says, "Jesus, Son of David." What does he say? "Have mercy on me now in my affliction. Heal me." He's desperate. He recognizes this is my one and only time. He says, "By your mercy." I don't deserve this. Don't give me what I deserve. See, back in those days, and it's still going here now, but especially back in those days in religious circles, he's in Jericho. We don't know that he's even Jewish. He's got an Aramaic name. But he's acknowledging Jesus as Messiah, and he says, "Have mercy on me. Have mercy on me. Don't give me what I deserve. Have mercy on me. Heal me in my affliction." In those days, if you had that affliction, what did you do to get it? I think a lot of us, as I'm looking around this room, a lot of us have gone through the early days of the faith teachings, when you sat there and you stood and you stood and you stood, and you didn't get healed. You didn't get your financial breakthrough. Your husband left you. What'd she do wrong? See, that thought from hell was prevalent even here. He's blind because he deserves it. Have mercy on me now in my affliction. See, that's what I'm explaining to you. I had a revelation when I just knew that this is my now time. I was coming in. This is the last thing. I'm putting everything in. I went to my HR representative. I wanted to make sure how many hours I had left, trying to use divine sense. I went to him and I said, "How many hours do I have left?" Because I have to know down to I'm having to do things that I don't want to do because I have to make decisions. I have to make myself available for this insurance company and for this doctor, and I have to go and take her there, and I'm wasting days knowing I'm going to need them when she comes back. So I go to the HR lady, and she's been so fabulous to me over these months. I've gotten favor with her. And she said, "How's she doing?" And she really wanted to know. So I explained to her what had happened since I had last spoken to her. And trust me, I don't say these things in a human resources office. I'm not looking for somebody to feel sorry for me. I'm not looking to manipulate someone. But I asked her, I said, "How many hours do I have left?" She said, "Now, Darren, don't worry. I'm thinking maybe once you get a little closer, Now, don't hold me to this, but maybe we can get you a leave of absence. In effect, it'll be the same, but because when you're on FMLA, you don't get paid, but you don't lose your job. Same deal with a leave of absence, but you can't just. I even came to church last Sunday, and I was talking to Kelly about it because he's an HR guy, and he had thought, what about a leave of absence? And I said, well, I haven't heard back from her. So I texted her early in the week after I had to take a couple days because I'm in Cleveland. Oh, my tablet went off. I hate when it does that. I texted her back. Actually, we communicate by email. And I said, Tammy, you mentioned a leave of absence. Is there any update on that? She was going to look into it and get back with me, and I hadn't heard anything. I'm sitting in a hospital room with Joy and all the stuff that's going on and getting her ready for colonoscopies and, all that. So I'm texting, Tammy, have you heard anything? Crickets. Nothing. Well, you know what the enemy did. She don't want to talk to you. It's not going to come through. You're going to lose this job. Then you're going to lose the insurance. Then your wife's going to die. Then you're going to lose your house. Then you're going to lose. See how he does. Well, I took all these. I didn't let him keep going, but that's just the progression. I've learned a couple things through this. I'm in my now moment. Jesus! If you don't come through, it can all fall apart. You guys know there's not one area of my life that hasn't been touched in the last year. Even physically. Jesus, have mercy on me now. Well, Cleveland Clinic was able to do some things that, honestly, I don't know why they couldn't have done here. There should have been no reason we had to go clear to Cleveland for what they were able to do. But they did get some things done to where she can stand up, if she can stand up. Pray for strength. That's really all we need to do is pray for strength for Joy. Physically, spiritually, mentally. She's under attack mentally. It's crazy. They were able to get a heart medicine to where she doesn't get dizzy and fall out when she stands up. So therefore she can do. But she's begun to swell because she just lays around all the time. So, but Cleveland Clinic ran her through every test. They ran scopes up, down, around, everywhere. She cancer free. We know that. Hey, we know what it's not, Mr. Alcar. We ain't real sure what this is, because she's doing better. Eating wise, she's doing a lot better. But it just takes 2 or 3 bites, and she's stuffed. She's like miserable Thanksgiving Day stuffed after a couple, 3 bites, And we went through every team they had, and it's not really an appetite thing. She has a gag reflex, and when she eats if she even thinks about it, because you know me, hey babe, what do you want tonight? Olive Garden, Taco Bell, Hardy. What do you want? I'll bring it. I don't want it. Even to think about it, when it was at its worst, she couldn't even think about food. She'd throw up. Well, folks, that's we've talked. I can't wait to get her home because now it's God's now turn. This is a demonic attack. We can deal with this. Jesus, have mercy on me. Have mercy on my wife. Grace. You don't hold that button or she'll talk to you. That was funny, wasn't it? Jesus, have mercy on me. Heal me. Now look at here what happens. Those in the crowd were indignant, scolded him for making so much of a disturbance, but he kept shouting with all of his might, Son of David, have mercy on me now and heal me. Not everybody knows your now time. That's why it's good that you know beforehand, that you know that you can hear God's voice. Because not everybody is hearing for you. He will confirm things through people. But we that are on a journey to understand spiritual gifts and giftings, let me just throw this out here, a little side trail. One thing I've noticed in trying to develop my prophetic voice, my prophetic understanding. Here's one thing I've noticed in prophetic people. Many of us, just like blind Bartimaeus here, when you bring something else out, church people, not church people, not everybody's saying, yay! And we get rejected. We feel like we're not accepted. And we feel like we have to defend and prove that we're hearing God. While we're trying, that's middle of the road. But you can get pushed over into the ditch. If you still need everybody's approval, you've got some growing up to do. And I'm speaking from experience. I don't have to tell everyone, I saw this. We have got to be a prophetic people that cares more about what he says than what other people say. To such a degree that we don't need to be noticed for it. And we don't always have to have a word. Because you can get something and you're not supposed to share it yet. And that will be how it defines how you share something. Too many people in prophetic circles are forcing their way into a conversation that's not theirs. It's how you say what you say, whether you're showing honor to the other person. I've tried to explain this to you. You submit what you... But here's where I'm at. Unless you're starting with thus saith the Lord, I'll probably be respectful, but if I don't say anything back, thanks, I ain't got time for this. I'm not trying to be ugly. You know what I mean? Unless you're really bringing it to where you think you have something from the Lord, you don't know what you don't know about my situation, so just don't bug me. You know, I got people all day stopping me. Well, here's what you ought to do. Remember the last couple weeks ago, Mike and I was, I don't mean to tell you what to do. Well, they're getting ready to tell you what to do. No offense. Well, they're getting ready to say something offensive. You know how that goes. And you've just got to learn to let it roll. That's one of my lessons in this thing. Just be tolerant. Just be patient. Their intentions are good. So everybody's upset with him because he's making a disturbance, and they're excited. Jesus is here, and he's leaving. Let's get the most out of it. We're having a celebration, and he's interrupting their party. So they're, shh, shut up. Quit making such a noise. Jesus stopped and said, call him here. Blind Bartimaeus saw something they didn't see. He saw that it was his now moment, and Jesus confirmed, the rest of y'all's blind Bartimaeus sees. This is his time. This is the only time he's got. Jesus is leaving town. He's the only representative of God. See, we don't have that here. We don't have to wait for the super evangelist to show up through town. We don't have to wait to go to this conference or that. We should be able to. Is the same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead in you as is in the hotshot evangelist? Jesus stopped and he said, you call him here. So now they went to the blind man and they said, be encouraged, have courage, get up. Jesus, see, now all of a sudden they flip. See, they're not, oh, sorry, we were wrong. They're not going to say that. Sorry, we missed it, blind Bartimaeus. You're the only one that saw. He's calling for you. Now all of a sudden they're on his side. See, everybody's on your side when Jesus calls for you. So they went to the blind man and said, have courage, get up, Jesus is calling for you. So he threw off his beggar's cloak. This is one thing that the Passion Translation, this is what I was referring to, especially this phrase. King James, it's completely lost. It just says he throws off his outer garment, he throws off his coat. In those times, this is so accurate, and this is important. This is him pushing all of his chips to the middle of the table. In those days, they regulated the beggars and where they could be. And they gave them a special coat. It was the beggar's coat. And what's he doing? He throws off his beggar's coat. He says, I'm all in. This is the only chance I got. And you know what? He throws off that beggar's coat. He's not saying, just keep this here in case I'm not healed. He doesn't keep it on. He doesn't tuck it under his arm. He throws it off and he goes to Jesus. He's throwing away his only source of income. He's throwing off all hope that he has outside. He's all in, baby. This is my now time. See, he recognizes it's his now time. Your now time, you might still be in the waiting room. I'm sorry. In some ways, we all are in seasons of waiting for one thing or another. But it's so nice when your suddenly comes, at least in one area.
Yeah, it is.
Don't despair when all hope in the natural is gone. I think that's why it stirred up in me when it was fine. I've run out of options. I've got to do this. And you're either going, this is either going to happen or it's not. I've done everything I know. I was relieved I didn't have to try to. Does that make sense? I was relieved, Linda, that I didn't have to try to figure it out. I just got to. This is all I got. He throws off his own, he throws it off. He doesn't say, hey, hold my coat. Now that you like me? Weren't you the ones that was ridiculing me a minute ago, telling me shut up? Would you hold my coat? I'm going to come back for it in case this don't work out. No, that beggar's coat's valuable in those days because it gives you the opportunity to not have to go get a job. You got that beggar's coat on. Some city official has already vetted you, knows you're blind or whatever your infirmity is, and you have to be certified to get that beggar's coat. And they assigned you where he had worked long and hard to get that place where he literally was at the edge of the city. Did you not see? That's a prime place for a beggar. He gets them coming and going. This ain't no one-way street, baby. He gets them coming into town and going out. He can hit the same guy twice. This is prime place. Everybody's got to go in and out. Because he sees it's his now. Hold on for your now. It's coming. Hold on for your now. And it comes when it's the darkest. You've got to have that posture that I read about in Psalms 84, where you're pausing in his presence and dialoguing with him and allowing him to speak. And I want to encourage you. Always be working on this part of your relationship. Hearing and responding to what you hear. Hearing and responding to what you hear. Practice this. Why practice? Because you're going to miss it for a while sometimes. You're going to hit it every now and again. You know, we got this funny thing around here. Even a blind squirrel finds an acorn now and again. I make fun of myself when I actually hear God, and I make light of it, but I'm trying to use an example. You're going to not hear something. You're going to hear something, and it's not. Jesus talking about prophets. He said, you'll know them by their fruit. What's the fruit of a prophet? His prophecies. If his prophecies come true, you'll know he's a prophet. You'll know them by their fruit. Well, poor old Isaiah, his didn't turn out in his lifetime. A lot of them. Some of them did. But you've got to start before the chaos, because it's harder to hear when you have fear and you have distraction and you have all these things coming at you at once, not to mention the spiritual attack on your mind. This has been the craziest season. The mental attacks have been just crazy. And the only thing that's gotten me through is the fact that I know that I can go to the Word because I've practiced this. And I've learned to discern the voice of God, how he speaks to me. And you've listened to me for the number of years. I've allowed myself to not just hear the way I've always heard, but open up my heart to a more than one lane highway of holiness. He speaks in different ways to me now. Cultivate that before the chaos. Amen. I'm just going to read it off the wall, Smitty. I keep letting my tablet go down. So he threw off his beggar's cloak. He jumped up and made his way to Jesus. He's all in. He's not even stopping and relishing the fact that everybody likes him now. See, now that he has everybody's attention, this is a real good time to collect some money. He throws off that coat, and he makes his way to Jesus, and Jesus said to him, "What do you want me to do for you?" Well, he's already told him. The man replied, "My master, Rabbi, my master," he's submitting, "please let me see again." See, that tells us he had his sight at one time. He says, "Please let me see again." So last verse, 52, says, Jesus responded, "Your faith heals you. Go in peace with your sight restored." My now moment was when I just let that HR lady, her name's Tammy, I just let her know this is it. This is all I got. Thursday, I think it was Thursday, I was waiting on insurance again to be able to send her back to Belpre for some physical therapy. I didn't want to run right to Cleveland because sometimes it takes a few days. I'll skip all the details and all the particulars, but I was back and forth with case managers, Belpre Landing, the one at Cleveland Clinic, Blue Cross Blue Shield. You ever try to get old somebody at an insurance company? My goodness me. I'm having to take more time off just to be on the phone. Just to be on the phone. I noticed an email from Hino. Tammy. Darren. Did some checking. And we think we found a way. I listen to every word and I analyze every word. It's a gift and a curse. Helps you read between the lines. We've been talking and we have a way to bridge your current FMLA benefit year to your next one. Don't worry about losing your job. We got you. Between the amount of time you have left vacation and the however many days you have left, we can bridge the two benefit years. It took my putting it all to the end of the table. God, I trust you. We're doing this. And because I was on that highway of holiness, I had the joy of the Lord, which is my strength. He got this. He knows there's nothing else I can do. She says, come in and we'll talk about it when you're... I don't even think she knew I wasn't at work that day. I go in on Friday. I thought maybe I had to sign something or whatever. I find out in the conversation, it's just a matter of finding favor with these people. I don't really have enough. I'm just close enough. They're going to look the other way and just, honey, Hino doesn't do this. Something Kelly said to me last Sunday when he was talking about the leave of absence. He's speaking from an HR representative, represents a company doing his job. I asked him, how's this leave of absence thing work? He said, well, I don't specifically know Hino's policies, but it depends on how valuable you are to them. It's favor. Looking at it from their perspective, I've been there so long I've maxed out the pay scale. I watch people get let go every year about Christmas time right before the bonuses come out. It's funny, we just laugh about who's going to get axed this year right before we get our bonus. They always seem to send a message. We don't know if that's true, but it's a coincidence every year. Some full-time maxed out person like me and Zach, that comes. They're not real bashful about getting rid of guys like me, 63 years old, maxed out pay scale, making everybody's insurance rates go up. In the natural, what's impossible? All things are possible with God. I'm going to close with this. I have a song that I'm going to have Smitty play. It's a song by a guy named Ryan Ellis. You may have heard it. It's been around for a little while, but you know, kind of like what Shirley said when you heard the song about It's Your Breath. We've heard that for years, but today it had something. This song that I'm going to have Smitty play for you. You know how when you're listening to Christian radio, in a sense you're opening yourself up, saying, God, speak to me. I mean, there's other channels you can listen to. It's kind of fun to listen to the oldies, the 70s, you know, those songs you grew up with. But when you're all in, you know, when you got everything you need a word. Sometimes you'll turn on K-Love or whatever XM channel that you listen to. I listen to The Message when I'm in my car. Sometimes you're there for a word. It just depends on how dark it is in your life. And it's amazing to me, songs I've heard over and over and over, I hear them different, right when I need to. Ryan Ellis sings this song. It's been out for a little while now. It's called It's Gonna Be All Right. I've said for years, it's amazing to me how God uses these people that write these lyrics in a prophetic way. And they say things before the church does, before the preachers do, a lot of times. Lauren Daigle has a song out. Have you heard It's Gonna Be Okay? Yep. It's the same thing. Different voice, different prophetic utterance, but it's going to be all right. Absolutely. But there's a line in this song, and I want to open up the altar. I didn't have the lyrics version. Smitty actually found it for us. Look at the lyrics in this song, but the one that just absolutely wrecked says, I even wrote it down. Your love will be my song until all my fear is gone. So, Smitty, if you'll... Oh, that's right. Thanks. I've got to do a commercial. Anybody that's watching this live stream, we're going to have to cut off the live stream to not violate copyright. If you're watching this on YouTube, Smitty's going to add a link to this video that you can get the same experience, but you won't be able to do it with us. But for those of you that are here, your now time may be getting to your now time. Having the confidence to push every chip you got to the middle of the table, say, this is all I got.